The Arkenstone, the legendary treasure of the dwarves, the greatest relic of Durin's folk, rivaled in significance only by the Nauglamir, which once rose to the stars together with Arendil in the First Age. In the story of the Hobbit, this gem became a symbol not only of the dwarves' power and glory, but also of discord among allies, as well as the rift between Thorin and his loyal companion Bilbo. Its beauty was admired by all, dwarves, elves, and men alike. It was spoken of as an almost magical stone, capable of driving people mad, awakening greed, and pushing them toward bloodshed. The Arkenstone was discovered deep within the Lonely Mountain shortly after the founding of the Kingdom of Erebor. This happened during the reign of Thrain, the first king under the mountain. When a company of dwarven miners uncovered an extraordinarily beautiful gem in the rock, all present immediately recognized it as a treasure of unmatched splendor.
The dwarves named it the Heart of the Mountain, and after masterful craftsmanship, they gave it a shape that blazed with thousands of reflections. From that day on, the Arkenstone took its place in the throne room as the personal relic of the ruling dynasty. The stone was so large that a hobbit could not hold it in one hand. It glowed with its own inner light, but also absorbed sunlight and torchlight, scattering them into thousands of white sparks shimmering in all the colors of the rainbow. Anyone who had ever seen it would forever remember its radiance. Together with the dwarves, the Arkenstone went through many trials. When Thorin I led part of his people to the Grey Mountains, the gem went with them. But dragons brought ruin there, forcing the dwarves to return to Erebor during the reign of King Thrir, placing the Arkenstone once again in the hall beneath the mountain. There it remained until the fateful day when Smaug set his sights on the dwarves' treasures.
The dragon seized the fortress, drove out its inhabitants, and lay down to sleep upon piles of gold, among which rested the heart of the mountain. Years passed. Thorin Oakenshield gathered loyal companions and one hobbit to reclaim his lost inheritance. He often spoke of his desire to see the Arkenstone again and hold it in his hands, and when Smaug, disturbed by the visit of unwelcome guests, flew off to take vengeance on the people of Laketown, it was Bilbo who, sneaking into the treasury, was the first to come upon the stone. Not fully understanding what he was doing, the hobbit slipped it into his bag, deciding it would be his share of the treasure. Meanwhile, Thorin was increasingly consumed by greed. He muttered curses and swore to destroy anyone who dared to touch the Arkenstone. Frightened, Bilbo did not dare confess his discovery. When Thorin refused to share the treasure with the men and elves who had suffered from Smaug, the hobbits secretly carried the stone out of the fortress and handed it over to the Elven king Thranduil and Bard the Bowman as payment for their aid and the losses they had endured. When Thorin learned of this, his rage knew no bounds. But soon came the battle of the five armies. The forces of dwarves, elves, and men clashed with the orcs. Thorin fought bravely, but was mortally wounded and fell on the battlefield. The Arkenstone was laid in his tomb deep beneath the stone vaults of Erebor, so that its light might guard his descendants and remind them of the price of pride. Some believe the Arkenstone may have been one of the Silmarils, the legendary jewels crafted by Feanor. According to legend, one of them was buried in the depths of the earth, and thus the dwarves could theoretically have found it. Both the Silmarils and the Arkenstone possessed an inner light and the ability to absorb and transform external radiance. However, the similarities end there. The Silmarils were smaller, could not be shaped or damaged, whereas the Arkenstone was cut by the dwarves. Moreover, the Silmaril was in Beleriand, a land that sank beneath the sea, while the Arkenstone was found in the Lonely Mountain. Finally, prophecy foretold that the Silmarils would return to the world only on the Day of Doom, while the Heart of the Mountain has no such destiny. Be that as it may, the Arkenstone remains one of the most beautiful creations in Tolkien's legendarium, a stone which, though lacking magical power, became the symbol of an entire people and set in motion events that changed many fates. After the Arkenstone was buried within the Lonely Mountain along with Thorin Oakenshield's body, it vanished from the sight of mortals.
No dwarf dared disturb the king's tomb. The gem was considered not merely a treasure, but the emblem of the final greatness reclaimed at the cost of life. It was said that in the darkness of the burial chamber, the Arkenstone continued to shine with a soft, steady light, as if keeping eternal watch over its master. For the dwarves, this radiance became a metaphor for steadfastness and loyalty unto the end. Over the years, legends grew around the gem. Some claim that the Arkenstone could repel evil and darkness from the mountain halls. Others that it whispered to those who came near with the voices of past kings. There were even those who believed that if the dwarves ever stood on the brink of destruction, the stone would return to them on its own, to show the way to salvation.